Hey, y'all, Gary here with Tennessee Stands. Hey, look, so if I could come dangerously close, I mean within a razor's edge, dangerously close of proving to you that Republican Majority Leader Senator Jack Johnson is breaking the law, is breaking campaign finance regulations, would that interest you? Especially in light of the transparency bill that the legislature passed this year and the governor signed, touting that they were on a mission to really give citizens campaign finance transparency, which we all know that's what their intentions really were, right? Well, look, if you may or may not know, most of you watching this video probably know that I'm running for office against Jack Johnson, and so if you don't live in Williamson County, you may not know this, but if you do, you probably got this wonderful piece in the mail called Grifter Gary Humble. Grifter Gary has a long history. You all know this to be absolute fact. A long history of selling out conservatives. And these folks are incredibly creative. They make the same statement 3 times. Grifter Gary actively works against Tennessee conservatives. Grifter Gary lobbied against Tennessee conservatives for sort of the same thing. And Gary works against the conservative agenda. So we have these 3 just piercing, shocking statements that all say the same thing. But the most, and bear with me because we're gonna do a follow the money, little sleuthing here. But the first thing I want to show you is on this mailer about me being a grifter, and as you'll see on the other side, a Democrat in disguise. They reference the Tennessee Lookout, an article on January 21st, and if you follow Tennessee politics and you read some of these articles, one of the things that you realize right off the bat is that the Tennessee Lookout is a leftist-leaning publication. But being a leftist-leaning publication, they wrote a piece calling me a conservative and how conservative I was. Yet this is the article that they reference saying that I'm just nothing but a grifter and I'm working against conservatives. So new conservative group, Tennessee Stands, takes on government mandates. This is the article from the Tennessee Lookout, January 21st, 2021. In the 6 months since Tennessee Stands launched as a fresh conservative voice rallying against pandemic policies, galvanizing resistance to COVID-19 emergency orders by state and local officials, the newly established nonprofit has worked to coalesce resistance to government mandates during the pandemic. Down here, they quote me, quote, "We want accountability and we want respect for the state constitution," Humble said in December. His group opposes what it characterizes as government overreach in lawless executive orders by Governor Bill Lee. It has enlisted paying members who want to reclaim liberty. Humble said that Lee is violating the state constitution in issuing executive orders that don't have the full vetting of the Tennessee legislature. And I'll close with this statement. Humble's group has proved successful in harnessing the unease and anger of Tennesseans opposed to what they see as government overreach in enacting pandemic policies, including mask mandates, business, and school closures. Yes, most certainly. So, according to this article, I'm the bastion of conservatism. We are against government overreach. We believe that Governor Lee's executive orders during the pandemic were wholly unconstitutional. I do. Because governors don't make laws. And because the legislature sat by idle while our governor made laws. While the body that was supposed to make law and defend our liberty stood idly by while the governor made executive order after executive order calling you non-essential and closing down your business and locking you home under penalty of law under a Class A misdemeanor. Also encouraged you not to go to church on Christmas. So look, yes, we have a big problem with those things. But so the article is talking about how conservative I am. This mailer is quoting that article and trying to say that I'm not conservative. In fact, on the back, they call me conservative voter alert. Don't vote for a Democrat in disguise. All right. Most of you, I hope all of you, know that that's complete nonsense. But here's what I really want to show you. because this is what we need to dig into. All right. Anytime you get a mailer, anytime you see anything like this in the mail, the first thing you always want to check is, who is it paid for? So this particular piece says it's paid for by the Tennessee Conservatives PAC. Well, who is the Tennessee Conservatives PAC? And before I move on from this image, I want you to recognize one more thing, because this is going to get to the heart of the matter. It's paid for by the Tennessee Conservatives PAC, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. That's an important statement, that it's not authorized, because under federal law and Tennessee law, candidates cannot coordinate with these PACs. These PACs must be wholly separate. They need to be doing their own thing, and candidates or any of their staff, campaign staff, cannot coordinate with these PACs on this messaging. That's what I'm going to prove to you, though, happened here in this case, right? All right, so who is the Tennessee Conservatives PAC? Let's start digging. Well, you'll notice when you look at the state website, the Tennessee Conservatives PAC was launched on May 16th, 2022. Well, I will tell you, and I will show you, this PAC was launched with one purpose and one purpose only in May of 2022, and that's to run attack ads and attack mailers on me for my candidacy against the Republican Majority Leader of the Senate. And we're going to dig into their report list here in a minute, but before we do, put this name in your back pocket right here, Les Williamson. Les Williamson is the treasurer for the Tennessee Conservatives PAC, and that's how we're going to tie all of this together, because that is a very repetitive and common thread throughout everything I'm going to show you. But before I get back to Les Williamson, put that in your back pocket, let's go to the report list for this Tennessee Conservatives PAC. They've only filed one report since they've been in existence. That's the second quarter that just passed. And they only have 2 contributions so far, one from Dale Allen and one from the Biv PAC. These are both lobbyists, both Tennessee, Nashville-based lobbyists that are funding this conservative PAC, quote-unquote, to attack me as a grifter and a Democrat in disguise and working against conservative values. So the first thing we need to look at is the Biv PAC. I want to go there first. Who is the Biv PAC? Well, that is Bivens and Associates, run by Mike Bivens. It's a family affair. Him and his family work together and run a lobbying firm here in Nashville. And look, I don't want to disparage these people, but look, they're lobbyists. They are the people. These are literally the folks that I'm against. These are the folks that I have already promised that I will never take money from. These are the folks that I have promised that I will never meet with. I'm not interested in hearing what someone's paid opinion is, and I don't take money from these people. And I'll show you why, because it's greasy politics. So when you look at Michael Bivens and his folks, and you pull up their annual report, you'll see here's where all of their money comes from. Mostly out of state: Alabama, Florida, California, Kentucky, Virginia. One donation from Tennessee. But you can see there's money from Airbnb. And yeah, I'll go back here for a minute. Here's the folks they work for. They represent, Airbnb, Citibank, eBay, Uber, some of your most non-woke corporations around the world. That's who they represent here in Tennessee, one of which is CHS, Community Health Systems, which is also one of the folks that make sure that everybody takes their vaccine around Tennessee, and one of the main contributors to Jack Johnson's campaign, who recently held a fundraiser for Jack Johnson. Okay, anyway, let's go back to their report. So they took $40,000 from Airbnb, and all of this money pours in from out of state. And what do these lobbying firms do with all this money? They just hand it out like candy. Jack's not unique here in this particular instance. These lobbyists throw money to everybody, and most people take it. All of these are representatives and state senators, including Cameron Sexton's PAC. And you can see down here, Jack Johnson in their last report has taken a total, one donation for $1,000, another for $2,000. So $3,000 to Jack Johnson, including another $1,000 to the McPAC. Again, put the McPack in your back pocket. We're going to get there in a minute. So you've got the Tennessee Conservatives PAC that's attacking my candidacy, that's funded by the Biff PAC, all right, by these folks, who represent these folks, who gives money to all of these folks. Basically, they just move money all over the state of Tennessee to all of these representatives and senators. All right, you get the picture. But bear with me, it's about to get a lot more fun. All right. Who else gives money to the Tennessee Conservatives PAC? Well, the big dog in the fight, Dale Allen. Dale Allen with a national lobbying firm called Adams and Reese. They gave $10,000. So they seeded most of the money to start this PAC. Well, who's Dale Allen? Well, Dale Allen is a partner at a large national lobbying firm called Adams and Reese. They're huge. And he's one of their main guys. He's a partner. Well, let's just dig in a little bit to who Dale Allen is, since he's giving $10,000 to this PAC, calling me a Democrat. So what I did was I went to the FEC, fec.gov, Federal Election Commission. Who does Dale Allen give money to on a federal level? Well, he gives money to Liz Cheney. So, and by the way, they give money to Republicans and Democrats. Why? Because they just throw their money all over the place for influence. They give to rhinos like Liz Cheney, but here's the most egregious ones. I mean, they give to Democrats like Jim Cooper. So the same guy who's calling me a Democrat is giving money to Jim Cooper for Congress, giving money to Haggerty, you would expect that, giving money to Joe Biden for president. Check this one out. $10,000 to the Tennessee Democratic Party and $10,000 to the Phil Bredesen Fund, the guy who ran for Senate against Marsha Blackburn. And one more for you. These folks gave to Hillary Clinton and more money to Jim Cooper. All right, so let me get this straight. Here's where we're at so far. We have a mailer that was sent out across Williamson County calling me a grifter. I'm working against conservatives, and I'm a Democrat in wolves' clothing. I'm a fake conservative. All right. And it's run by the Tennessee Conservatives PAC, which just started in May, and is funded by two lobbyists, one of which represents all of these woke companies and has taken in money from out of state and given money all over the legislature here in Tennessee, including my opponent, Jack Johnson. And then another donor who also donates to the Tennessee Democratic Party, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, and Jim Cooper. Is that about summing it up for you? Because that's where we are. That's where the money is anyway. That's who backs this mailer. All right. But here's the question, who created the PAC? Who's the creative genius behind the PAC and behind sending the mailer? Well, let's go here. Remember the name that we saw earlier, Les Williamson? All right, so how does all this tie back to this race? Again, went to the fec.gov, Federal Election Commission, trying to find out, boy, that name looks familiar. Who is Les Williamson? Well, Les Williamson is also the treasurer for Bill Haggerty when Haggerty ran for Senate. Les Williamson is the treasurer. Whenever Marsha Blackburn ran for Senate, for her super PAC, Les Williamson is the treasurer. Whenever Morgan Ortagus, the quote-unquote carpetbagger, as everyone liked to call her, who was promoted by President Trump to run for Congress here just recently in the 5th District, her PAC, the treasurer, is Les Williamson. So you have a Tennessee Conservatives PAC that is funding a mailer against my candidacy for state Senate, who's also the treasurer for PACs for Marsha Blackburn, Bill Haggerty, and Morgan Ortagus. Now, what do all of those people have in common? I'll show you. The common thread is this guy right here, Ward Baker. Ward Baker runs the campaigns for Bill Haggerty, for Marsha Blackburn, and for Morgan Ortagus. Well, here's the kicker. Who else does Ward Baker run the campaign for? Ward Baker runs Jack Johnson's campaign. Okay, so let me make sure I make this crystal clear for everyone. Ward Baker, the same guy who runs the campaign for Jack Johnson, who also runs campaigns for Marsha Blackburn, Bill Hagerty, and Morgan Ortagus, consistently uses a guy named Les Williamson, who forms all of his PACs to run his candidates' stuff that they run out into the interwebs and in your mailbox, who also just happened to form a PAC now here in Williamson County to run mailers against me. And, you know, I'm making a strong accusation here that Ward is known to coordinate illegally against campaign finance regulations with PACs to run ads like this. And everyone knows he does it. It's just people are scared. They're nervous. You know, these people have a lot of money. Oh, no, we don't want to talk bad about the super majority Republicans that really don't do things the way they're supposed to do. But that's what Tennessee Stands is all about. And so let's take a look at this. Lest you think that I'm just making wild accusations and tying things together that I ought not, and certainly, you know, Ward has no history of coordinating these types of efforts. Well, funny enough, literally almost exactly a year ago, June 16th, 2021, accusations have been made against Ward Baker in the past for doing this exact same thing. This complaint was levied against Club for Growth that Ward Baker was coordinating some efforts from Marsha campaign. And of course, the complaint named Marsha for Senate, her super PAC, and Les Williamson, the treasurer, and Ward Baker, the political campaign strategist that was involved in what was being accused, or the accusation being made of coordinating all of these efforts. Now, the problem is this. Here you can see in the introduction to the complaint specifically alleges that the committee's political consultant, Ward Baker, spoke of such coordination during a speech he gave at a private event. So here, what these folks are saying is, look, we were at a private event, and Ward Baker was giving a speech, and we heard him say that he was coordinating efforts between Marsha's campaign and all of these other PACs that were involved, like Club for Growth and AFP and whatever the accusation was. But if you scroll down, here's what happened to the complaint, and you know this is probably where we are now. Here's the issue in the legal analysis. The complaint alleges that Baker's description of the campaign process between committees and outside groups provides evidence of coordinated communications. The complaint, however, does not identify any communication with which to conduct the coordination analysis established by the commission's regulations. So what the FEC here is simply saying is, we know you've lodged a complaint, and we understand that you're saying that you have proof that Ward Baker spoke at a private event and communicated that there was coordination. The problem is our FEC regulations require you to provide proof of the coordination that has happened. And that's the same thing we don't have here. We don't have hard evidence and emails back and forth and everything that would be required to prove that there was coordination. But what I can tell you is this. There is, contrary to me being there being a long history of me working against conservatives, there actually is a very long history of Ward Baker and his team being accused of coordinating with outside PACs illegally and running attack ads to support his candidates. And anyone in the political world here in Tennessee knows that to be a fact. And what you have here is a complaint that was lodged with the FEC just a year ago, alleging the same thing against Ward Baker when he was running Marsha's campaign. So look, here's what I'm telling you. When you get a piece of mail all across Tennessee, because you have conservatives that are running against establishment hacks all across the state of Tennessee. And folks like this who have the money and the means to do so, and they exercise their power and influence because they don't feel threatened. I mean, people like Ward and Jack and all of these folks that start these PACs, these lobbyists, Bivens and this Dale Allen that takes in all this money and gives to Democrats and then attacks conservatives like me with all of his money. These people do it with impunity. Why? Because no one's ever held accountable. Why? Because it's hard. The true transparency laws that we're supposed to have make it incredibly difficult to actually prove that these things take place, even though we all know they do. But the way that the campaign finance laws are actually structured, they're structured for lobbyists to win. They're structured for PACs to win. That's a fact. So that's what needs to change. We don't need to run transparency bills pretending that we need to squash conservative nonprofits like Tennessee Stands from telling the truth. What we actually need to be passing, Governor Bill Lee, in our supermajority Republican legislature, what we should be passing is shutting down the influence of PACs like this that are taking in money from all over state, all from out of state, infusing it into local elections, and spreading lies and half-truths without the ability of conservative candidates to actually be able to lodge a complaint that actually has the ability to be investigated, because the way the laws are structured, it's almost impossible to prove that these coordinations took place, yet we all know they do every day. So this is the fun stuff going on right now in Williamson County, but it's not just Williamson County. We know this is happening all across the state. And when you get a piece of mail like this in your mailbox, you ought to pay attention. You ought to be acutely aware of that little paid for tag, and you should look it up. You should look up that paid for tag, and you should find out when someone is saying something about someone else politically, the question you have to always ask is, who's paying for it? Because that matters when you're looking for the truth. God bless you, Tennessee. We're going to keep fighting.